In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Enugu, Amaka and Chinedu lived a life many envied. Their union, blessed by tradition and love, had been one of joy, respect, and hard work. Chinedu was a civil engineer known for his gentle spirit and dedication to his family. Amaka, his wife of 12 years, stayed at home to take care of their three children, two boys and a girl, all in primary school. They had built their home together, not just the house they envied in, but a sanctuary of peace, laughter, and shared dreams. Chinedu's family visited often. His two older brothers, their wives, and his mother, Mama Ngozi, a strong-willed widow who prided herself on raising successful sons. They would gather during festive seasons, and the compound echoed with the chatter of cousins playing and adults sharing palm wine under the mango tree. Amaka had always been respectful to her in-laws. She cooked for them, served them with a smile, and treated Mama Ngozi like her own mother. Yet, underneath the smiles and laughter, there had always been a shadow. His family never truly accepted her. They often whispered about her being too quiet, too educated, or not one of them. Chinedu always stood by her, brushing off the whispers, telling her she had nothing to prove. Then everything changed. It began with a headache that wouldn't go away. Chinedu brushed it off as stress from work. But within a week, he collapsed in their living room. By the time Amaka rushed him to the teaching hospital, it was too late. The doctor said it was a stroke and there was nothing more they could do. Amaka's scream shattered the silence of the hospital hallway. Her whole world crumbled in a moment. The news hit her like thunder. Friends came, pastors came, neighbors came. But what followed was darker than anything she could have imagined. Chinedu's body was barely cold when his family descended on the house. They didn't come to console her, they came with a mission. They took her car keys, his bank documents, and even asked for the house deed. Amaka was too dazed with grief to fight back. They told her it was our son's property, that tradition demanded everything reverted to the family line. Mama Ngozi barely looked her in the eyes as she said, "You were just his wife. This family made him who he was. We will take care of the children." They didn't. That night, the body was brought back to the house from the mortuary for a final vigil. Custom demanded certain rites be performed. Amaka was pulled aside by Chinedu's eldest brother. In hushed tones, they told her of an old tradition from their village, one they claimed must be honored to cleanse her and ensure she will not be haunted by her husband's spirit. They made her sleep in the same room with the corpse. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. Her heart sank, she begged, pleaded. She was mocked and accused of trying to escape tradition. That night, with her children weeping in another room, Amaka was locked inside with the dead body of the man she had loved. The scent of death filled the room. She didn't sleep. She sat on the bare floor, her back against the wall, trembling, whispering prayers into the darkness. Every creak of the room made her jump. By morning, she emerged, eyes sunken, soul broken. The children rushed to her, but she was not the same. Days later, the burial took place in Chinedu's village. The family took over every detail, barely letting Amaka speak. They buried him on the family land, and she returned to Enugu, only to find the locks changed in her belongings in black nylon bags outside the gate. She moved into a single-room apartment near a local market, surviving on the little savings Chinedu had secretly kept in a joint account she had access to. The children stopped school for a time. She started selling cooked food by the roadside, waking up at 4 a.m. to grind pepper, wash rice, and prepare meals with borrowed pots. Her calls to Chinedu's brother went unanswered. The same people who had once called her wife now acted like she never existed. The days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The whisper of pity in the market, the stares from neighbors, the painful questions from her children. Amaka bore all in silence. Her body moved like a machine, but her spirit had been shattered on the cold floor of that room where she was locked with death. Some days, her son, Chisom, would sit beside her and ask when they would go back home. Her daughter Dora once cried through the night, clutching a faded photo of their father. Amaka had no answers. All she could offer were tired arms and promises she wasn't sure she could keep. One rainy evening, Amaka stood behind her food store, watching as the rain ruined her leftover rice and beans. The leaking umbrella she had tried on the side of her table offered little shelter. A man, one of her husband's former colleagues, spotted her from across the road. He crossed quickly, holding his umbrella over both of them. "Amaka, is this what you have been reduced to?" he asked, shocked. She nodded, eyes downcast. She didn't have the energy to explain, but he insisted she visit the office the next day. "Chinedu wouldn't forgive me if I left you like this," he said. At the office, she sat nervously in the reception, the children at home with a neighbor. The man, Mr. Eze, handed her a folder. Inside were papers, documents Chinedu had signed before his death, listing Amaka as the next of kin for a life insurance policy through the company. "I've been trying to reach you," he said, "but your numbers weren't going through." Her hands trembled as she looked through the papers. It wasn't much, but it was something, enough to feed her children, maybe rent a better place. Her heart beat faster. For the first time in many months, she felt like a door had opened. She used the money to start a small provision store, moving her business from roadside cooking to a wooden kiosk near a school. Her children went back to school with second-hand uniforms and bright eyes. She didn't tell them about the night she cried alone or the time she walked long distances just to save transport fare. But life, though, still had begun to shift. One day she got a message. Mama Ngozi was sick, very sick. Chinedu's younger brother, the only one who had not been openly cruel to her, came to see her in person. "They want to see you," he said. Amaka looked at him. She could still feel the cold floor under her from that terrible night, still hear the silence when she was thrown out. "Why?" she asked. He hesitated. "Mama says she saw Chinedu in her dream. He was crying. She said he was angry." Amaka said nothing. She stared at him for a long time before turning back to arrange biscuit packs on her shop shelf. Amaka sat awake, staring at the ceiling at her children as her children slept. Memories flooded her mind. Chinedu laughing in the kitchen, singing off key while washing the dishes. Her soft voice whispering prayers over the children as they slept. The way he always held her in church. She missed him so dearly. It hurt like a physical wound. But she had not forgotten. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, not the silence from the very people who claimed to see his spirit in their dreams. She didn't go immediately. Days passed, another message came. Mama Ngozi had been admitted to a hospital in the village. Her condition was worsening again. They said she was calling for Amaka. The children noticed her silence. Adora asked, "Mommy, will you go and see Grandma?" Amaka looked at her daughter. She was old enough now to read pain in her mother's eyes. Amaka nodded slowly. "Yes, I will go." She left the children with a trusted friend in the neighborhood and boarded a rickety bus to the village. The air smelled of earth and burning firewood. Memories of her wedding day, of the compound full of music and dancing, came rushing back as she walked towards the family house. Inside, Mama Ngozi laid on a thin mattress, barely able to lift her head. Her once strong voice was now a dry whisper. The room was filled with the scent of herbal medicine and dust. When Amaka entered, silence fell. Mama opened her eyes slowly. She stared for a moment, then began to cry. "My daughter, I wronged you," she said, barely audible. Amaka stood still. She wanted to scream, to shout, to ask where this humility had been when she was begging outside her own house with her children beside her. But instead, she knelt. She didn't do it for Mama Ngozi, she did it for Chinedu, for the man who would never have wanted his mother and his wife to carry bitterness to the grave. Mama reached for her hand, thin and cold. "Forgive me," she whispered. I allowed evil to enter this house. I was blind. Tears streamed down Amaka's face, silent and bitter. I forgive you, she said. One of Chinedu's brothers, who had stayed in the shadows during her suffering, stepped forward. We were wrong, Amaka, all of us. We let grief turn us into monsters. Amaka stood and looked at him. You didn't let grief do anything. You let greed do everything. His head dropped. That night she slept in the same house where she had once been forced to keep vigil with her husband's corpse. This time the air was different, heavy but not cruel. By morning, Mama Ngozi was gone. They buried her 3 days later. Amaka didn't stay for long afterwards. She said her goodbyes and returned to the city. Her spirit lighter, but her heart still carrying scars no one could see. At home, her children welcomed her with hugs and questions. She smiled, held them close and whispered, "We are stronger now. No one can take that from us." But Faith had not yet finished writing her story. The months that followed were quite filled with determination. Amaka's provisions shop grew. She expanded her stock, added cold drinks, then phone recharge cards. Her face began to lose that hollow look, replaced slowly by a calm, earned strength. She didn't wait for help anymore. She didn't need it. One Saturday morning, as she was sweeping the front of her shop, a clean black SUV pulled up. She recognized the man before. He even stepped out. It was Chinedu's younger brother, the one who had brought her Mama Ngozi's message. His face was tight with something between shame and worry. He greeted her politely, then brought out a brown envelope and placed it on her table. "It's not much," he said. "We have decided to return the documents for the house in Enugu. It was never right to take it from you. Chinedu built it with you. He loved you." Amaka looked at the envelope. Her hand hesitated, then without a word she picked it up and placed it inside her drawer. She didn't thank him, she didn't smile, she only nodded. The house wasn't just bricks and paint, it was her past, her pain, her betrayal. But it was also her children's home. She went back with them a week later. The house was dusty, the compound overgrown, but when she opened the front door, the children rushed in laughing, running from room to room, as though no time had passed. Adora opened the bedroom door and whispered, "Daddy's room." Amaka stepped in behind her. The room was just as they had left it. His books, his scent faint in the wardrobe. She sat on the edge of the bed and ran her hand over the bed sheet. The memories no longer felt like knives. They were soft now, like feathers brushing against a healing wound. She cleaned the house herself, scrubbed the floors, repainted the walls, planted flowers in the front yard. She framed Chinedu's picture and placed it on the center table, not as a ghost to fear, but as a man who had loved her beyond death. Years passed, her children grew. Chisom graduated first, then Adora, then little Ebuka. She sat proudly at each ceremony, her eyes shining with the kind of strength only life's hardest trial could birth. People still whispered about her story, how she had been forced to sleep beside her husband's body, how her family took everything, and how she rose anyway. Some called it a curse turned blessing, others called it a miracle. But Amaka never called it anything. She simply lived and survived and loved, and that was it.